And now, the Android Basics segment. This is a segment where we discuss the things that power your device from behind the scenes. And now, here's this week's episode, Android Basics. Let's now turn on to our subject matter of the day. And of course, we're talking about that battery versus performance. And so we just started talking about the OnePlus. I know that the OnePlus, I'm not sure if they are good in big batteries. Though most of their phones usually top out, about the 4,000 plus milliamp or maybe 5,000. I don't remember.
I think this OnePlus 13 is 6,000 now. I think.
Yeah, you may be right.
Because last year it was like 5,500 or 5,400, something like that.
Yeah, and I remember our friend Harith was reviewing, or he got a couple of phones. One of them was the OnePlus Ace, and I think that thing has a big battery. And I think the newer ones like that, with that big battery capacity. So the question is, which one should one go? Which one is better? Is it battery performance, how long your battery lasts, or the performance, snappy, snap, very powerful phone. Which one is better? Karen, let's start with you. What's your take on this?
Well, I think that the best thing is to have something balanced. Like, you don't need your battery to stay to stay for 3 days maybe or something. It's impossible right now in these days, unless if you get the phone that Harith purchased, which was the Yucatel or something like that. It has 15,000 or something. So it was crazy. It wasn't
give me
really,
that one.
No way.
You wouldn't have to go to the gym anymore if you had that phone.
Exactly. 400 grams all the time in your hand. It's crazy. So yeah, I think the best thing is to have something balanced. But I think that right now, you don't really have to choose one over another, because even the high-end processors and GPUs, they are trying to, the companies are trying to make them efficient, power efficient. They are trying to make them not really consuming so much battery. But the most important thing, I think, is for companies to give us also the choice. I mean, like Samsung, it was making some throttling. It was making some they were decreasing the power of the device. They were trying to say, okay, we are saving battery, we're saving the device. So if you are going to give me the best processor and the best specs, and then you take them from me in the name of battery, that doesn't make sense. And I should be able to choose. I don't mind losing more battery. I'm just getting this, and I should get this. So this is the point, I think. So I think Samsung started to become less aggressive. However, they are still aggressive, sort of, especially with software stuff. They are really, sometimes you may have a Samsung device, and then you turn off the screen, and after 5 minutes you get a call, a WhatsApp call, for example, then it will not ring. It will show you a missed call notification. So they are just trying to save battery as much as they could. So this is not really the way to go. So in summary, just let it be balanced and let the user have the choice to whatever I want. Let me take it and let me use my phone as I want it to be.
Yeah, Samsung is very aggressive with the battery optimization. I have to, and you shouldn't have to do this. Anytime I set up a phone from Samsung, any media player application like an audiobook player or a podcast player, I always have to remind myself to go in and turn off battery optimization, because, and it shouldn't be this way. Like the apps that you're going to be constantly listening to stuff, they shouldn't shut off in the middle of you listening to them with the screen off, and that will happen sometimes on Samsung devices if you don't go in and turn off optimization for those specific apps.
So, in other words, though, you see, they're a little bit concerned about the battery because the battery, as we all can agree on, is the most important part of any phone experience. And I know living here in the States, I particularly, personally, probably wouldn't be worried about battery performance necessarily, the longevity of a battery, so to speak. But if I were in a place that, battery, or rather electricity is very iffy, or whatever to say the least, I probably would be looking at something with a bigger battery because performance, if I have a middle of the road performance, I think that would be good enough for me. But I think I'll prioritize long battery life over performance. That's how I'll see it.
Not necessarily being a person who lives in a country where electricity has its issues. But so I can talk about this. Well, you don't need, I mean, usually the phones that have the better battery and the better time with like, you can just have 2 days or whatever, or more maybe sometimes. Usually they are the phones with low-end processors, because those processors are usually less power hungry. And the manufacturers just give you a big battery and say, okay, this will stay for long, and they will advertise it as this, and they will be usually cheap ones. But having like this low-end processor will have its impacts, will have its troubles. So I think the best thing is to have a battery that, like, for example, 5,000 is good, and you get a good processor. Even the high-end processors, the phone will be able to last for about a day. And I think that having a phone that lasts for a day is not bad at all. And, people who are living in this type of countries will already have their alternatives. Like, we will have power banks, we will have a lot of backup plans to have to let things go as they should. So for this reason, I think we don't have to choose, and 1 day battery life is good.
I agree. Well, because when I traveled to Africa, like I did early last year, I can't believe we're saying last year. So it's going to be like 1 year ago, coming up in February. What had happened was that, there are days that you even have like 2 or 3 days without electricity. But like you said, though, there are what they call the charging stations. People have businesses basically just charging batteries with a generator and all of that. So it created a market, or has created a market for people. So it's a good idea, because now someone has a business where they're charging phones and stuff like that. So I can see where you're coming from. But of course, if I have a good performance, most batteries these days would last at least maybe more than a day, or a little over a day, depends on how you use it. So we're really getting better with the battery performance. And when it comes to, this also ties into whether, how does one like it when it comes to updates, maybe OS updates. And usually, so we say, if my battery is not going to last that long to support those updates, then, which one should I take, right? So we're looking at the same idea here, the performance. And frankly, I think for me, probably I want to go then with performance over battery, knowing that one could get a power bank or could give money to someone to charge it for you. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So the good thing is that we don't have to choose, really, because even these flagship, really powerful phones these days, like Karine mentioned, they last all day. So you don't have to choose, really. But, if I had to choose between the two, I don't know what I would do. I want my phone to get through the whole day. I don't want to have to. So when I first got the Flip, not the Flip 6, but I think it was the Flip 4, that only had like a 3,300 milliamp hour battery, and I was having to charge it at some point during the day, so I'm not a fan of that. So I would choose battery over performance if I had to, but it also depends on the performance, because For example, Samsung lets you choose whether to let your processor, the performance profile for your processor. So you could go in and have it set to normal, or you can set it to light. And if you set it to light, I don't know what percentage of the full power it uses, but it doesn't use it ever at full power, the processor. And when I set it to light, I don't really notice the difference. Like with talkback usage, it's still just as fast. With I do every week for the podcast, I render YouTube videos, and I do that on my phone with Audiolab, and that takes a lot of processing power. And even when it comes to rendering videos on my phone, which I do for YouTube every week, I use Audiolab for that, and that takes a lot of processing power. Even having the performance profile set to light, I don't really notice it taking any longer. I mean, I'm sure it does take longer, but it's not anything noticeable. So I just keep it on light all the time. So I guess in a way, I am preferring battery life to performance. Although, like I said, it's not really something you have to choose these days, which I think is good.
Mid-range phones, mid-rangers now have very good performance to where the lines between the flagship phones are kind of getting blurred and all of that. And so all that is performance. And now when you have a very good battery capacity on such a phone, it really makes you question, whether it's worth the trouble getting a flagship device. And again, depending on where one is and depending on one's priority, whether one prefers a longer battery or one prefers a more powerful device, I think it comes to what one prefers. And I would love to hear from our listeners as to what they think about this subject matter, because it's a very important subject matter, whether you want a very powerful device and then battery not lasting long or whatever, or you'd rather have a nice mid-ranger with a good battery life, and yet the performance is not something that flies a rocket to the moon. That is something that I would love to hear what our listeners have to say about such matters. It's a very important matter. And these days, I think just about every phone out there has some good performance. It's not like back in the day. And John, you are talking about 3,300 milliamp battery. Back in the day, that was a big battery. I remember I'm talking about, maybe like 7, 8, 9 or 10 years ago, maybe not even 10 years ago, because most of them were like 2,000 plus. If you have that much 2,400 milliamp battery, I think that 3,300 is like the mid 2010s, like 2015, 2016. I'm looking at things like the Pixel, the first Pixel. I think that thing was maybe like 3,000 or 3,100. I don't remember. And back then, we were thinking, that has a great battery life and all of that. So it's really interesting to see how far we've come. And, so far, though, unless you're having some of the outliers like the OnePluses and some other phones from China, we still haven't moved too far from that 3,000 plus milliamp battery capacity. You still find, flagship phones with 40-something hundred milliamp battery capacity and all of that. I think, in my never to be humble opinion, every damn phone out there, excuse my Espanol, should at least have like a 6,000 milliamp. I think that would be the sweet spot. Karen, what do you think?
I think 6,000. Well, I like to have a 6,000 capacity. I don't mind it, but I think that it's not going to happen. And it will add some thickness to the phone, which is something that I don't like, but it's good. I mean, the screens are becoming bigger. The processors are becoming also stronger and better. So yes, they are becoming also more power efficient. But yeah, they are like they need power. They need this battery, and the problem is that the batteries aren't able to move on with this. So they are not able to catch up with the battery technology. So I think we have to have some progress with battery capacity and with the battery also longevity. It's not like the batteries aren't able to keep up also with like the time. You're like in 2 years you will lose some of the battery capacity, and in 3 years you will lose more. So I think that the thing that we need right now is for the batteries to become better, to improve, and this I think will give us the thing that we really want. So I don't know if they are going, because you hear about this and that and this and that, but until now there's nothing that is really important that's happening with respect to batteries.
Talking about this and that you just mentioned, wasn't it OnePlus that was supposedly coming up with some new battery technology that was going to be lasting for a very long time? I was reading about that, I think sometime last year, and I was all excited about it. I'm like, gosh, is that going to make me a OnePluser unless some other manufacturers, adapt that? I think if we have such a thing, that would be the sweet spot. So the take home here is that battery capacity or battery and performance go hand in hand. In order for me to have that great performance, I need a good battery, because if I have a great performance and I'm down in X number of hours while something is yet to be done, then I'm left wanting. And yet in the same breath, if I have a great battery and yet my performance sucks, and I still have something yet left to be desired. And so there's a balance, like you said, Karen, between the two. And the good news here is that we seem to have that balance, most especially when I look at these mid-rangers. They have great battery and the performance is not something in the toilet. So I think we have a good thing going, and I think we'll only be getting better from here.